All right, we have a quorum, so let's get started. Council members Arenas and Perales are here along with myself, so we can get going. I think you can take it away, Joe. Oh, we have consent calendar items.
Yes,
Thank you. I forgot about those.
C1 and 2 on the consent calendar.
All right, I will entertain a motion for the consent calendar.
I'd like to actually speak on item C2, so I'll move for item C1.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes, and go ahead, Councilmember Perales on C2.
Thank you very much. And so thank you, staff. I think my team sort of made you aware this is not meant to be controversial, but I wanted to see if I could add something to the parking board's work plan, which would be agendizing a discussion for the Japantown Business Association revolving funding allocations out of their meter revenue and potentially even their citation for the meters, but adding that to the agenda. So if staff is comfortable with that, maybe you can respond and just let me know. Then I'll make the motion.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's a head nod. Any idea on when you'll be able to add that to the agenda?
I think it's going to, Aaron, do you know when it go on that agenda item?
Yeah, budget and CIP are in March.
November and March, so the parking board in November, and then we'll move it to actual the city budget after that. So
Thank you very much. So I'll, with that amendment, I'll move item C2.
Do I have a second? Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And the motion carries, although albeit not very enthusiastically. All right, now we move on to reports to committee and the audit report on street and utility in lieu fees.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Joe Royce, City Auditor. We're here to present to you our audit of street and utility in lieu fees. I'm joined today by Allison Pauley, Stephanie Noble, and Leonard Hyman from my staff, as well as Matt Kano and John Ristow with the administration. So, new development constrain the city's infrastructure and amenities. To help finance potential improvements, to address this, developers are required to either construct some portion of improvements in the areas surrounding their property, or help pay for their share of improvements through an in lieu fee. These fees are required as a condition of permit approval and are subject to the California Mitigation Fee Act. The objective of this audit was to review the collection, tracking, and use of in lieu fees, with a focus on street and utility-related fees. The audit addressed fees related to traffic impacts, utility undergrounding, traffic signals, landscape median islands, street improvements, and storm collection system improvements. These fees are collected by the Department of Public Works and tracked and used by Public Works and the Department of Transportation. Traffic impact fees, or TIFs, are charged in areas with associated development policies. These policies identify transportation improvements to mitigate or partially mitigate the effects of anticipated development on street traffic. Examples of improvements include new freeway interchanges, added turn lanes at intersections, and improved bike lanes. Along with state and regional grants and taxes, TIF revenues help to pay for these transportation infrastructure improvements. The city currently has 4 TIF areas: North San Jose, US 101 Oakland Mayberry, Evergreen East Hills, and Winchester 280. Utility undergrounding is the process of moving above-ground utility lines into below-ground substructures and removing utility poles. The city undergrounds utility lines through Rule 20A projects and Rule 20B projects. Rule 20A projects are funded and managed by PG&E on major thoroughfares. Our review focused on the Rule 20B program. The city funds Rule 20B projects through in lieu fees. Developments on major collectors or arterials or that are near commercial zones may be required to pay an in lieu utility undergrounding fee. Alternatively, they may underground existing utilities along the street fronting their property. The city pools money collected through the in lieu program across the city. Exhibit 4 on the left of the slide shows the locations where utility undergrounding fees have been paid over the years. The city also collects in lieu fees to fund improvements for traffic signals, street improvements, landscape median islands, and storm collection system improvements. These fees fund local improvements needed because of a specific development and can be charged across the city. Exhibit 5 on the right of the slide shows where these fees have been paid. While TIFs and undergrounding fees have been regularly charged to developers, fees for the other traffic improvements have decreased in recent years. Our report has 4 findings. The first finding is that consistency and transparency in fee calculation can be improved. Calculating in-lieu fees is often complicated and may involve coordination among multiple city departments or work groups and developers. Overall, there were few instances in our sample in which we found that developers had not been charged fees appropriately. However, it was not always clear whether a developer paid an appropriate fee because decisions surrounding fee calculations were not always clearly documented. This lack of documentation may affect staff's ability to use fees received and make it difficult for staff to track how close a TIF area is to meeting capacity requirements in the policies. We recommend that Public Works develop guidelines for appropriate documentation and staff clarify procedures surrounding undergrounding fees to ensure fees are consistently applied. In addition, to track undergrounding fee activity and determine whether a development needs to pay a fee, Public Works uses an old binder of city maps which it annotates using colored pencils to mark parcels that have paid a fee. Updating the information on this map is a manual process, and as you can see on the slide, the binder is old and well used. We recommend that Public Works develop a digital tool to identify streets designated for utility undergrounding, including whether a parcel has a frontage on a designated street and whether the undergrounding fees have been paid previously. Our second finding is that improved tracking and coordination would enable program staff to better use in-lieu fee revenue. During our review, we identified at least $810,000 in unspent in-lieu fees intended for public improvements that had already been constructed and that should be reimbursed to either the city or the entity that constructed the improvement. We recommend that staff review these in-lieu fees and public improvements to determine whether any money should be transferred, improve coordination between program staff moving forward, and update the annual in-lieu fee report to ensure that information is accurate. Additionally, we noted that though most fees were correctly put into funds intended for in-lieu fees, it appears that a few were incorrectly placed in a separate fund intended to track deposits made by developers. We recommend that staff review the fees in this depositor fund to determine whether any in-lieu fees are held there in error. Our third finding is that the city should clarify expectations of the utility undergrounding in-lieu fee program. Utility undergrounding is a time-consuming and capital-intensive process. Part of the 20B program's slow pace is due to the limited revenue generated through in-lieu fees. Though 20B projects can be combined with 20A projects, 20A funding or completed by developers, the in-lieu fees are the only source of city funding to support this program. In recent years, the city has collected an average of $1.3 million annually through the undergrounding fees, which amounts to less than 0.5% of the total needed to complete the undergrounding master plan. As shown in the slide, the amount the city holds in reserve is just a small portion of the overall funds needed to complete projects. The slow collection of revenue is due in part to the way the fee is structured. Fees are only charged when parcels are developed, and the fee only covers half the cost of the undergrounding the frontage of the parcel. The Public Works provides the City Council with annual reports on the city's undergrounding programs. Unclear expectations on scope, timelines, and funding make it difficult to evaluate the 20B program's success. Given the slow collection of the undergrounding fees, we recommend Public Works provide more realistic timeframes and more clearly describe the long-term nature of the program. We also recommend Public Works review the base fee to ensure it compares to the actual cost of undergrounding. And finally, if the city wants to pursue utility undergrounding more aggressively, it will need to identify additional funding for the program. Our fourth finding is that although the city has improved the management of revenues for traffic impact fee-funded areas, TIF funding will remain slow. The city has collected $85 million in TIFs for transportation infrastructure improvements in the 4 TIF areas. Of that, $68 million is still in reserves. In total, the city needs $1.2 billion for identified improvements, most of which are in and around North San Jose. We found that TIFs fund improvements gradually without set timelines, and incoming TIFs have been slow for several reasons, including slower than anticipated development, particularly in North San Jose. Additionally, incoming TIFs have been slow as a result of trip credits, such as those for existing use, and incentive programs that reduce or waive fees for certain types of industrial development. During the course of the audit, we identified additional revenues that were intended to supplement the reduced fees, Staff corrected the process for reconciling this money and identified an additional $370,000 that will go towards improvements in North San Jose. Additional money is anticipated. Moving forward, we recommend more formalized coordination between Public Works, which calculates and collects TIFs, and the Office of Economic Development, which is responsible for related programs, including coordination of developer agreements and disclosures of reduced fees under state law. Finally, we found that the criteria for fee waivers in the US 101 Oakland-Mayberry area can be made more transparent. These are currently defined only in an internal memo, and we recommend the administration take the criteria to council for inclusion in the US 101 Oakland-Mayberry policy. Our report includes a total of 8 recommendations to improve the collection, tracking, and use of street and utility in lieu fees. We would like to thank staff from Public Works, DOT, PBCE, OED, the City Attorney's Office, and the Budget Office for their time and insight during the process. I'd ask that you accept the report and cross-reference to the full City Council for discussion October 29th. And with that, I'd like to turn over to Matt and John to present the response from the administration, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Matt Kano, Director of Public Works. Want to just definitely appreciate the work of Joe and his team. As we all know, there's programs out there that we wish if we had time we could do a little more in-depth analysis of, because we know there's improvements that we can make. And working with Joe's team, we're able to identify and pinpoint those most important improvements to be made in this program, and we look forward to continuing to evolve and improve over time. So thank you very much, and we're here for any questions.
Councilmember Perales?
Yeah, thank you, Joe and your team for this audit. I think the pictures in here didn't, I guess, do justice. I won't make you bring it slide back up because maybe Matt and his team were embarrassed about that. But seeing it on the screen, just sort of the old school nature of the maps that were being utilized, I think that is one of many great recommendations, right, in order to be able to just to look at this program more efficiently. Unfortunately, I do think the reality, though, is that we're talking a lot more money, right, that we need to actually be able to go through what we would love to see, which is the undergrounding of these utilities, and just not a mechanism. I know that, Matt, you mentioned in here in regards to the Delmas project, what has been the delay on that project? You mentioned delay there on PG&E's end to actually complete that and then give us an opportunity to reassess some of these fees, but if you can speak to that.
I'm actually going to ask Sal, who helps manage our program, to make sure I get the specifics of that delay right. But overall, I would, as Sal's coming down, I would just say that I agree on the mapping side. We agree with you. It was like 3 or 4 Public Works directors ago. His name was on the bottom of that map. We have actually mapped all the prospective projects moving forward. And then as we are still working on a program to map all the projects that we've done in the past and then figure out how to also link the fees that were collected within that database. But we have a pretty robust GIS team in Public Works, so I'm sure we'll be able to figure that out. And I'll let Sal answer the specifics of the Delmas Park delay.
Thank you. No more colored pencils.
Hi, my name is Sal Kumar. I'm a senior engineer with the Roads and Bridges section. So major delay has been with the Delmas Park project has been, it's a lengthy process for undergrounding program itself. It involves PG&E and other utility companies. So the major delay on this project has been with the PG&E side as far as the project managers that we work with. The city staff have to work with PG&E to come up with the design, and we have to wait for design. Once the design is completed, and then we take their design in, and then we complete a construction drawing. So there has been the delays that on their part.
So we're still in that phase of the actual design of it? And
actually, the design is complete, so we will be advertising the project in December and hoping for construction next year, early in spring.
But it was that phase that was the delay you're talking about with PG&E, was kind of going back and forth with him on that design?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. That was my other question.
Councilmember Arenas?
Thank you, Chair. So for Evergreen East Hills Development Policy, I believe we have 4.2 million out of the 85 million that's been collected in developer fees that would go for traffic impact fees for Evergreen. I know that at one point we had, and this might be a question more for Matt, we had a whole list of projects that, or projects that would be mitigated by this amount of money. Where are we on that list?
Yeah, Councilmember John Rizzo, Director of Transportation.
Thank you, John.
There is a list of still remaining projects. Some of those that I don't think we're interested in actually pursuing. They may not be effective at what we're trying to do with mitigating traffic relief in those areas. So one of the things we're still trying to determine is what's a process to actually rethink reusing those funds in projects that we may want to undertake in that area. So, for instance, there's lots of intersection improvements that were on that list, and may not make sense for that to do. And thinking back all the way through when we start doing these traffic impact fee areas, they're a long time ago, and really a lot of things have changed in actually every one of these areas, probably. So what we're going to try to do is understand from a legal standpoint what we can do if we need to make changes in terms of project lists and what we can then appropriately and correctly spend those funds on. So we're going to embark on that and see what we can do differently with those funds. There has been a lot done in that area. It actually was done quite a bit from outside funds as well that came in and did a lot of the freeway work that was the expensive stuff. So
Right. That's what I understand as well. Okay, so you'll reassess the list, figure out whether it still makes sense, and legally
what's the
whether we
legal
can.
way we can go about doing that?
Right. Okay. And when do you project? I know this is kind of a slow
Soon?
process.
I think the answer is as soon as we can. I think it's one of those that there certainly is a need to actually still do some work out there. It's as soon as we get a chance to actually have some direction from city attorney's office on what's the right way to go, then we'd probably be engaging council office on how to do that. So
Wonderful. I would just say to please align, possibly if you could, if there's still some remaining items, and I can't remember off the top of my head what those items are. I'm sure Jessica probably knows.
yeah, we know them all. Yeah.
That if there's any that are coinciding with some like pavement improvement or like the Tully safety improvement corridor efforts, that they would align with those efforts and
That would
maybe
work
enhance
well.
them,
That
right?
would really work. If we have some alignment, we're certainly
Right.
going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, that would be excellent to figure out whether we can legally refocus or reshape some of these lists, and I would absolutely recommend them to be in line with some of the other efforts that you're already taking. So thank you. Thanks, John.
Councilmember Diep?
Hi, I was just curious, we're required, to offer an in lieu fee. That's my understanding of everything, housing and these underlining things. Ideally, we'd have them do it for us, but the in lieu fee isn't an option that we have to offer.
I actually have to maybe defer to if the attorney's office knows about the legal standpoint, but just from a practical standpoint, the in lieu fee, a lot of times we have small developments that it just doesn't make financial sense for them to do the whole block. And so from a financial and practical standpoint in this program, we do have that option of the in lieu fee. I'm not sure, I can get back to you on the legal requirement though.
I'm going to go ahead and say yes, it is. But I guess my question for us on our end is, oftentimes we've seen that we've collected the fee, and because of the fluctuation in market or economy, I'm not sure how we align it so that the fee we collect is enough for us to do what we need to do.
That's a great point, and the audit mentioned that, and we also responded regarding the undergrounding fee, and it's something that we now, once we put the Del Mas project out to bid, we're going to see in reality what it takes in today's dollars to do an undergrounding. And then after that, we will likely come before council to discuss whether the fee should be updated again. Because you're correct, if we're not continually keeping pace with the actual construction costs, sometimes we don't collect enough to actually do the project. Or sometimes if we collected a fee 15 years ago, median islands cost less to build 15 years ago. So if it sits for too long, no matter how accurate it is at the time, it's not going to be enough when you're actually ready to build. So it is a challenge.
Right. So whatever we do, I just hope that we're nimble enough to provide for the residents what they're expecting.
Correct. And our goal is to really try not to collect fees, especially in the transportation side with median islands, et cetera, and signals. Our goal is to try, if at all practical, try and get the developers to actually build the improvements.
Sure. Councilmember Jennifer Pouchot from the City Attorney's Office is here, can more directly address your question as well.
Sure.
Hi, council member and committee members, Jennifer Pouchot, City Attorney's Office. I just wanted to follow up on your question regarding whether or not the city has to charge an in lieu fee for the undergrounding. And I think the answer is no. I think there's been a decision, I think it was made many years ago, that this is something, a policy goal of the city council. And so I think originally as the program started, underground utility was actually, the developers actually had to construct and install the improvements. And I had looked back, we've looked back at kind of the legislative history, and it appears that there was a shift and an interest from the development community to say, hey, look, you know what, can we have this option? So there was a lot of committee meetings, et cetera, and so they developed the in lieu fee option. So as Matt and the others have said, the developers can choose to pay the in lieu fee or actually do the improvements themselves.
Oh, okay, thank you. I didn't realize that. I appreciate the insight.
Sure.
Thanks. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right.
Motion to approve?
Second, and cross-reference to October 29th.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. And we will move on to item D2, the Regional Wastewater Facility Capital Improvement Program.
Good afternoon, committee members. Nap Fukuda, Assistant Director, Environmental Services Department, and I'm here today with Norm Mascarenas, Public Works, who oversees the construction management out at the Wastewater Facilities Capital Program, and David Olson, Division Manager for the Wastewater Facilities Capital Improvement Program. We have a short presentation, which is coming up, I believe. Great. Thank you.
All right, so just a quick reminder about our program. We are the largest capital program at the city, and we are just concluded our 5th year of a 10-year capital program valued at roughly $1.4 billion. Through the end of the last fiscal year, we had committed roughly $476 million for the planning, design, and construction of critical rehab projects at the facility. For fiscal year 18-19, we had a budget of roughly $362 million, and during this reporting period, we had 20 active projects totaling roughly $1 billion in various stages of project delivery. For this presentation, I'll be highlighting some of the program and design activities, and Norm will be providing an update on our construction highlights. As you may recall, last November, we hired a program manager to oversee the RWF's biosolids transition and disposition or management plan. And their first assignment was to lead a biosolids disposition market assessment. That effort kicked off in January, and in March, the project team surveyed 11 wastewater agencies and 16 potential service providers, including soil blenders and product marketers, to gather information on the current and future markets for biosolids transportation and disposition services in the Bay Area. In May, staff held a workshop where the findings and conclusions of the assessments were provided. We presented an update of the assessment to TPAC last month, and the team will continue to develop the procurement strategy and implementation plan over the next several months with the goal of recommending a final strategy to TPAC and Council in early 2020. At a program level, we continue to focus on recruitment and retention. During the second half of last fiscal year, we filled 13 of our vacant positions, 4 of which were internal promotions. One of the key positions was the principal engineer overseeing our construction management section, which is Norm, sitting here beside me, who has been a great addition to our team. With 13 vacancies remaining, recruitment continues to be a priority, with our immediate target to fill entry-level and senior-level engineering positions to support project delivery. As mentioned earlier, during this period, we had 20 active projects. This chart shows the phases and stages for our design, bid, build projects. We are delivering 13 projects using this delivery method. Notice that there is a wave of projects in the design and bid and award phases. Those projects will be advancing into construction over the next 10 months. Besides traditional design, bid, build, we have several projects we are delivering projects using the design, build method. As this chart shows, we are delivering 3 of those projects using low bid design build and 4 using the progressive design build approach. Of the 5 projects in feasibility and development, we had 2 projects that continued through conceptual design. Our storm drain system improvements project continued developing project alternatives. An early step in that process is condition assessment. The photo here shows the consultant performing subsurface utility location using ground penetrating radar technology as part of the assessment effort. And speaking of condition assessments, the yard piping and road improvements project began planning process shutdowns needed to perform its second summer of condition assessment work. Our goal is to begin the design builder procurement later this year. Of the 9 projects in the design phase, 4 continue to develop preliminary designs and 5 were in various stages of the detailed design development. For the dewatering facility project, during this period, staff completed the design builder procurement and negotiated preliminary services with top-ranked design builder Walsh Construction. That contract was approved by TPAC and Council last month. We completed the conceptual design for the fire life safety upgrades and outfall bridge projects, and both teams started work on preliminary designs. For the 96 and 87-inch pipe rehabilitation project, we completed the pre-qualification process in April and the final design in May. That project was bid in July, and we'll be recommending the project for award to TPAC and Council in November. We also completed the final design and pre-qualification process for the nitrification clarifier rehab project, first phase. We advertised those bids in May, opened them in July, and will be coming to Council and TPAC actually this month to recommend award. And finally, for headworks, one of our largest projects, the design builder completed the basis of design report and began subsurface investigations for the new headwork site, as you can see in this photo. Now I will hand it over to Norm to share the construction highlights.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Norm Mascarenas from Public Works, the principal engineer overseeing the construction management at the regional wastewater facility. I'll be sharing with you some highlights from the construction activities that occurred in the facility during the second half of fiscal year 18-19. The first project I'd like to highlight is the Advanced Facility Control and Meter Replacement Phase 1 project, as shown in the 2 areas delineated in red on this map. And known in the plant is the secondary battery B and nitrification battery B. The scope of the project includes a replacement and upgrade of control equipment, such as flow meters, valves and actuators, and sensors. The project has a construction value of $6.9 million and is anticipated to achieve beneficial use in summer 2021. During this period, the contractor installed new equipment, meters and valves in the secondary battery B area. In the photo in the top left, you can see the contractor working in the return activated sludge vaults, that's the RAS vaults, for clarifiers B1 through B8, located outside the secondary blower building, which is the blue and white building with the facade. In the bottom left, you'll see the contractor replacing a meter in one of the clarifiers. The work that is often done in hard-to-access areas and requires specialized equipment and confined space training. The RAS vaults are approximately 20 feet deep, so again, it takes a lot of coordination and, again, the confined space training. Safety is taken seriously on all projects at the plant. The photo on the right, you see a contractor monitoring the meter replacement work from the top of the vault. There's typically a person responsible for watching the workers and lowering and raising them into the vaults, as well as a safety person watching the work in the event a safety concern should arise. For this project, through June, construction activity on the project was approximately 47% complete. The next project I'd like to highlight is the blower improvements project, which spans several locations in the plant, shown on the areas in red on this map. The scope of the project includes mechanical and electrical upgrades to the existing blowers in Building 40 and the tertiary blower building, removal of 6 blower engines, and the installation of 2 new electric-driven blower motors in the secondary blower building. The work includes upgrades to the motors, control panels, and instrumentation for all the blowers. Just a quick reminder that the blowers are critical pieces of equipment that to support the secondary and tertiary wastewater treatment processes at the plant. This project has a construction value of $34 million and is anticipated to achieve beneficial use in fall 2022. During this reporting period, the contractor completed pre-assessment of 10 existing blowers to establish baseline operating conditions on the photo on the left. This assessment will help determine the amount of work, including calibration and repair, that the blowers will need to make sure that they are working efficiently. The contractor has also started to demolish the concrete block walls in Building 40, as shown on the picture on the right. This is for the rerouting of utilities and repurposing of the building to accommodate new electrical equipment. The work that is going on currently is the preparation phase for the project, for the overall project, where the critical work being done is when the blower motors and electrical equipment get installed. The next project I'd like to highlight is the cogeneration facility project, again shown as red on the map. The scope of this project includes the installation of 4 new engines, generators, which are used to create electricity for the facility, as well as gas treatment, gas blending systems, electrical switchgear, and new gas pipelines, heating and cooling lines, which all be housed in the new Building 45 adjacent to the Building 40. This project will also construct a new Power and Air Operations Center, we call the PAOC, which will be used by O&M staff to control and monitor the generators and equipment in Building 45. Through June, the construction was approximately 50% complete. The project has a construction value of $91 million and is anticipated to achieve beneficial use in fall 2020. During this reporting period, a lot of progress was made on this project. In this photo taken in April, you'll see a very active construction site. The white building on the top of the photo is the existing cogeneration building. That's Building 40. And then you can see the new cogeneration building is Building 45, which is on the left, with the CMU walls being built. And inside are housed the motors or the generators. And in the bottom center of the photo is the PAOC building. Currently, the CMU walls for the Building 45 and the PAOC building are complete. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and pipe work continues. Rough-in work on buildings for windows, doors, and steel framing for offices are ongoing. The contractor is planning to grade the site and pave before the end of the year. This slide is from April, and then fast forward. The last slide was from April, and then fast forward. This slide is from June, and you can see that the photo shows the cogeneration building as well as the PAOC building. The CMU walls have achieved their maximum height. In addition, you can see the roof trusses have been placed in preparation for installing the roof on the main generator building. I have a short clip that shows the process of placing the roof trusses. You can see the crane operator lifting and very carefully maneuvering the roof trusses in position. What you don't see in this video is the bridge crane that was installed through the opening in the roof trusses. The bridge crane inside the building is a dual hoist crane able to lift 25 tons on the main hook, 5 tons on the small hook. Again, the bridge crane will be used to move heavy equipment related to the generator engines within the building. The last project I would like to highlight is the digester and thickener facilities upgrade project, as highlighted in red on this map. The scope of this work includes the rehab of 4 anaerobic digesters, upgrades to existing dissolved air flotation thickener or DAF tanks, installation of odor treatment systems, construction of a new sludge screening building, and a new gas piping collection system. Through June, construction on this project was about 75% complete. The project has a construction value of $161 million and is anticipated to achieve beneficial use in fall 2020. This photo shows the construction that is occurring with digesters 5, 6, 7, and 8. Again, the digester facility is where sewer sludge is heated, broken down to create digester gas. This gas is pumped to the cogeneration building and used to power the engines that generate electricity. As part of the rehabilitation process for the digesters, a concrete ring was poured around each digester base to make them resistant to seismic events. The rings are, to put it in terms of construction magnitude, the rings are 8 feet wide and 12 feet deep. They are poured in 4 separate lifts in 4 separate quadrants for each of the digesters. The digesters were also converted from a floating roof to a fixed roof. The concrete roofs were constructed by bringing in numerous concrete trunks, pumping the concrete up to the roof, and then pouring the sections in quadrants, similar to pieces in a pie. So as you can see in this photo, the contractor completed the roofs for digesters 5, 6, and 8. Currently, we hit some significant milestones for the ring beams and the roof pour. So to date, all the ring beams have been poured and the roof has been poured for digester 7. So this video shows the extent of the temporary scaffolding needed to support the fixed concrete roof during construction. The overall weight of the roof is approximately 1,600 tons. It must be supported as each concrete segment is poured and until the concrete is fully cured. And then the scaffolding will need to be dismantled and pulled out through the gas dome, an opening in the roof about 12 feet in diameter. So imagine once the concrete roof gets poured, all of the false work and scaffolding gets pulled out through the center, and you can see the center, it's roughly about a 12-foot diameter opening. In this video, you see the upgraded DAF tanks. As part of this project, the DAF tanks are going to be covered to reduce odors. In the background, you see the new sludge screening building. During this period, the walls and roofs were completed and the mechanical piping and foul air collection ducts were also installed. The project has progressed significantly since this video was taken, and currently the sludge screening building canopy, the polymer tanks, mechanical equipment, screening bins, foul air piping, and fire suppression equipment all have been installed. And then you can see the additional gas piping and pipe racks seen on the left were installed. Previously, flammable gas was piped in the tunnels, but as part of this upgrade, and more specifically for safety purposes, the pipe network is now above ground. Again, this is the piping that allows digester gas to get to the cogeneration facility, which is used to generate the electricity. Again, the pipe racks on the left, if you go out to the plant, reminds kind of like the Disneyland monorail, except with the on that pipe rack will be the digester gas, and it will be plumbed to the cogen facility. Those are my construction highlights, and I'll hand it back to David to wrap up the presentation.
All right, thanks, Norm. So looking ahead at the next 6-month period, we'll be returning to council with several items, including construction awards for the 96-inch, the nitrification clarifiers, and 6 switchgear M4 replacement projects. We also expect to complete the pre-qualification process for a number of projects, as well as establish the guaranteed maximum price for the Headworks project, which we intend to bring to council in early 2020. For the program, we will return to council to amend a few of our master consultant agreements. We will develop the biosolids procurement strategy and implementation plan. We will also continue to develop our short-term and long-term strategies for construction management and testing, startup, and commissioning in anticipation of the increased construction activities happening over the next few years. And as usual, we will continue to focus on recruitment to fill key program delivery positions. As part of this effort, we continue to expand our outreach efforts to attract strong engineering candidates. And finally, I'd like to close with this short clip of the RWF's construction laydown area taken in June, showing the vast amount of material stored for various projects that are currently in construction. We're excited by the fact that they will soon hold even more material and equipment over the next few years, with so many projects going into construction. And that concludes our presentation. We're available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions from my colleagues? Councilmember Perales?
First off, thanks for the report and all the visuals. Was it drone footage? How did you capture that? Yes, drone footage. I scratched my head slightly because I know that our police department is like extremely restricted in using their drone, and this shows why drone footage is so extremely helpful. You get a bird's eye view that that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise at all. I mean, even if we were to tour these sites, which I have done, you don't get to see this from this angle at all, and it just looks much more different. So nonetheless, that was it. I appreciate the report and all the updates. I don't have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. First, what is going to happen with the old cogeneration building 40? Is that going to get torn down or?
That is correct. So the engines are going to be pulled out, and that building is going to be repurposed.
Okay, and what are we I know we got new engines because we had to put them into the building on the slab before we built the building. So what are we doing with the old engines?
Those are actually being torn down, and we are going through the process because those engines are about the size of a locomotive.
Right.
So getting them out of the building is one thing. So the contractor's probably going to take it out piece by piece, or we're coming up with a plan for that. But those facilities are most likely going to be scrapped in terms of and sent to the recycling.
Sure, thank you. And in terms of the amount, remind me, what is the percentage of electricity for the facility that is generated on site? Is it completely self-contained, or does the cogen facility just do a portion of what's required?
It's not, the cogen facility will not fully maintain the site for the moment. We have an option to add more engines to completely do it. The challenge right now is having enough gas to run the engines. So at the moment, the digesters don't generate enough gas to run enough engines to fully support the whole facility. But what we can do is we also kind of load shed every once in a while if we need to, and just run critical things. So I mean, say for instance, if we have a PG&E shutdown, we can run, as long as we have natural gas and digester gas, we can run the whole facility for as long as we have that source at a lower run rate, if you will, shutting down less critical parts of the infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what's the percentage that the cogen facility takes up? We don't know.
I don't know if I can, yeah,
That's
I
okay.
can get you that answer though. I don't have I don't want to give you the wrong number.
Thanks. Yeah. I know we have TPAC later this week, so if you if you can get me the answer by then, that'd be great. And then in terms of the vacancies, how is recruitment going? We didn't have a full report on vacancy rate, and I can't remember the last time we saw that at TPAC.
We're actually doing really well on the lower level engineers. In fact, we just completed several engineer 1, 2, sanitary engineers, associate techs, as well as some engineers and inspectors in the public works side. So we're doing very well on the lower end. It's the senior level or that the senior engineer, principal level that we're kind of having more challenges on. So what we have done though is try to reframe our if you will, recruitment marketing strategy of our positions, kind of marketing, kind of like this is a once in a lifetime, if you will, project. I can't say that we've seen big success yet in the amount of candidates coming in, but we're working with Public Works and HR on other options. So we're doing what we can.
Are we working with San Jose State and the other universities nearby with their engineering departments to kind of try to work through their alumni networks to get?
We go to like events there and market out to them. And again, so we've been very successful on the entry level side in getting those newer engineers, junior engineers, if you will. It's just those with the 8 to 10 to 12 year experience, and specifically in wastewater, where we're a little more challenged with.
Okay. Well, we might, if we go through the alumni networks as opposed to the job fairs on campus, we might be able to get them more experience. So that's one idea that just kind of occurred to me while you were talking. So I'm sure San Jose State has a pretty extensive alumni network, and I know somebody like maybe the city manager who might be connected with that. And then I know Stanford's alumni network is very strong as well. And I know someone who works in the alumni department that I can connect you with if you want.
Great, that'd be great.
I don't know anybody in the engineering department, but I know they have a great engineering department. So that might be one other way to try to get to the more, someone who has a local connection but is more experienced in the engineering department. Thanks.
Great.
I will entertain a motion. Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. That passes, and we will move on to Climate Smart San Jose.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Ken Davies, Deputy Director with Environmental Services, joined by Jessica Zank, Deputy Director, DOT, and Laura Stachinsky, Emerging Mobility Program Lead with DOT, and Ramses Madhu, Division Manager, DOT. Here today with our semi-annual update on Climate Smart San Jose. As we go into the presentation, it's important to remember that cities play a crucial role In our nation's economic development and climate action, 90% of GDP and 86% of U.S. jobs are generated in 3% of the continental U.S., mostly our cities. 2/3 of the world's energy is consumed by cities, and 70% of global GHG emissions are produced in cities. So as the 10th largest city in the U.S., San Jose has an important role to play in the fight against climate change. Today we'll be giving a quick background on Climate Smart, talking about our engagement with the community, and give you an update on progress since the adoption of the plan. Our urgency is that the warmer, drier trending continues. The climate challenges of this century directly affect the quality of life of all residents in San Jose. Over the past 2 years across California, the United States, and worldwide, there have been more frequent and disruptive flooding events, degraded air quality from massive wildfires, as we just, I think, received our first public safety power shutdown warning today from PG&E, and record-breaking extreme heat events. San Jose has been no stranger to such occurrences, and unless action is taken, these events will continue to affect the health of residents and visitors, the safety of neighborhoods, the success of businesses and institutions, and the viability of habitat and wildlife in our community. To the plan then, the slide here depicts the important key framings for the plan, which are being centered around people. The city is a catalyst for action outside of City Hall. Public input into the plan was substantial, and engagement with partners is ongoing. And it's aimed to improve quality of life. It's implementation ready, has deep alignment with our general plan and environmental goals. It's inclusive and enabled by the Good Life 2.0 concept, and informed by data. Cost-benefit modeling was used for our energy inputs. The plan has 3 pillars and 9 strategies, all with bold goals. The plan outlines 9 strategies that work toward creating a city that is sustainable and climate smart, connected and growth-focused, and economically inclusive. Strategies such as focused densification and job creation are concrete examples of improved quality of life. Some key areas to point out: densification of our neighborhoods, creation of local jobs to reduce VMT, embracing our California climate by reducing water consumption, and making homes efficient and affordable. In the absence of federal climate leadership, the city and community came together to not only support the principles of the Paris Agreement, but to develop a plan that charts the best pathways for keeping global temperature rise this century below 2 degrees C. At the same time, San Jose is a growing city and is expecting 400,000 more people by 2040. Climate Smart provides a framework for urban and economic growth while reducing GHG emissions. Some examples of our bold goals: by 2030, 60% of all passenger vehicles will be electric. 40,000 dwelling units will be located in urban villages and focused growth areas. By 2050, reduced per capita water consumption will have dropped by 50%. And by 2040, San Jose will be the world's first 1 gigawatt solar city. As you know, San Jose was one of the 25 cities awarded resources under the American Cities Climate Challenge through Bloomberg Philanthropies, and the only city in Northern California. We were selected for our leadership in the environment, and our ambitious commitments, emphasizing the word ambitious, which we hear a lot from our grantors, and given the alignment of our American Cities goals with our Climate Smart goals, this will really help accelerate our progress. A wide range of community interests were brought together in planning and development of the Climate Smart Plan. The engagement and participation of the community in activities that lower GHG emissions is critical to the success of the plan. In May 2019, council members requested that staff return to this committee with a Climate Smart Community Engagement Plan, one conducted in collaboration with our community leaders and nonprofit partners, and one that clearly articulates pathways to engage hard-to-reach and low-income families. Since then, discussions have been held with all of the council members' staff to identify the best type of engagement for their constituents. Key leaders, community members, neighborhood and faith-based organizations, while also understanding key issues and concerns within their districts. Consistent requests were for specific language and materials, and that the community outreach be more engaging and interactive rather than just presentations and question and answer sessions. ESD is engaging first with council district identified community leadership councils with a higher percentage of under-resourced and disadvantaged communities. With their input, subsequent discussions and with other leaders and groups will then begin in order to frame climate action in the context of individual and community needs, identifying potential opportunities and community partnerships. We anticipate the resulting dialogue will build commitment in the implementation of Climate Smart citywide. These and other ongoing internal Climate Smart coordination activities will help in the development and launch of a comprehensive community engagement plan that we will report on at our next visit with you in May of next year. Other key engagement activities proposed for the near future include the Bay Area Electrification Expo on building decarbonization. That's this Saturday. We're happy and grateful to have the chair joining us there. San Jose Clean Energy's continued engagement activities, the Climate Smart Youth Leaders Pilot, a partnership with the Tech Interactive and Work to Future for a climate-focused career education fair for high school students in March of next year, a web platform and associated climate leaders program for tracking individual contributions to GHG reductions, and a focused residential engagement project with Mothers Out Front and other partners to reach at least 1,000 residents within the city. Between May of 2019 and now, the following notable outreach activities were completed. Community engagement at 8 community events and 1 neighborhood association meeting reaching over a total of over 700 residents. Selected events included San Jose Earth Ride and Viva Calle. 5 outreach events are scheduled in September and October, including the Moon Festival, reaching the Vietnamese community, and Pumpkins in the Park. Materials were provided in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. We also gave away over 1,000 LED light bulbs from May to August at events to promote simple and cost-effective energy efficiency. And the giveaway is an ongoing activity at all Climate Smart outreach events. We also deployed social media campaigns in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, including a Climate Smart San Jose animated video ad that reached over 116,000 people on Facebook and Instagram. In addition to the Climate Smart community engagement, the city made progress on the Climate Smart San Jose Action Plan. There is still a long journey ahead in order to implement the full city action plan and meet our goals through 2050. There's also a clear ongoing commitment by the City Council and city staff to that success. I'll discuss a few key initiatives arranged by the plan's core pillars that are representative of the extensive and commendable actions that various city departments are taking to bring the short-term and long-term climate smart goals to reality. Pillar 1, a sustainable and climate smart city. The launch of San Jose Clean Energy in February of this year now serves over 330,000 customers. Their default green source service is 45% renewable and 80% carbon-free, and their total green service is 100% renewable, with less than a 2% opt-out rate. San Jose Clean Energy is working on a comprehensive plan, strategy, and guiding principles to evaluate opportunities for climate-smart actions, such as electrification incentives, feed-in tariff programs, and other ways to scale renewable energy and storage, expected to be at this committee in February of next year. Solar loan program. Public Works is investigating a Bay Area Air Quality Management District loan program for storage and solar projects. BACMED's Climate Tech Finance Program offers subsidized financing for public and private facilities to adopt emerging technologies that also reduce GHG emissions. SolSmart certification. SolSmart, U.S. Department of Energy Solar Energy Technologies Office Program, recognizes and rewards cities, counties, and small towns for making it faster, easier, and more affordable to go solar. The certification process reviews ease of permitting, public reporting on solar statistics and goals, as well as community engagement efforts on solar. And we will be presented with our official SolSmart Gold designation at the Expo this Saturday, which earns the city up to 100 hours of free solar-related technical assistance. The 1 gigawatt solar city, promoting existing programs like the disadvantaged community single-family affordable solar home programs, Bay Area Sun Shares, which is solar discounts through select providers. We're educating SJCE customers on solar and storage on their website and providing customer programs like the solar loan program. For municipal facilities, outdoor lighting is about halfway through being converted to LEDs, and the rest will be changed soon through Measure T dollars. Solar currently is deployed at 39 municipal sites with about 6.5 megawatts of electricity generated. New buildings, new municipal buildings will employ zero net carbon approaches and be evaluated for battery backup. And the Air Quality Management District's Climate Tech Finance Program will again offer those subsidized financing forms for public buildings. Natural and working lands, Climate Smart San Jose Phase 2 will include a natural and working lands analysis, which will research the interplay between natural working lands and community-wide GHG emissions. We secured $80,000 in matching funds from the Open Space Authority in March of this year and have developed an MOU. With that match in place, the city released an RFP for consultant services up to $160,000 in April, and that contract was recently executed in August. Pillar 2, a vibrant city of connected and focused growth. The Transportation Access and Mobility Plan, DOT is working toward a comprehensive San Jose Access and Mobility Plan. Phase 1 was completed, which brings together the many broad and complex goals, policies, and strategies in the city's guiding documents into 8 concentrated directives, which is also your next agenda item, so I'll let Ramses cover that one. Shared micromobility will be reporting to this committee in December. Increasing high-density housing, Council approved the scope of work for the general plan four-year review in June of this year, including consideration for shifting housing growth capacity to downtown, changes to the North San Jose development policy and the city's municipal code will motivate developers of high-density multifamily housing to construct new affordable apartments in North San Jose close to transit. Parking management and pricing, the city is reevaluating its parking policies to improve consistency with its climate smart plan and envision San Jose 2040 general plan, transportation and land use goals. Current parking requirements are not always consistent with community goals, including increasing fairness and housing affordability, reducing traffic congestion and GHG emissions, designing more attractive and lively neighborhoods, and development of urban villages. Through the American Cities Climate Challenge, the city has partnered with SPUR, Fourth Urban Land Institute, and Nelson Nygaard to comprehensively evaluate and pursue updating parking requirements for new development to design parking around a strategy that will enable no and low parking development, particularly around transit.
Ken, I'm sorry to interrupt. The committee members got an email that the video feed is not working from a resident trying to watch. Is there any way you can notify them? Okay. Video is not working. All right. Thanks, Ken. Go ahead.
Urban Sustainability Directors Network Equity Leaders Program. As the beginning of an effort to apply an equity lens to our climate smart initiatives, ESD led an interdepartmental team from ESD, DOT, SJCE, Housing, and the Mayor's Office through the Urban Sustainability Directors Network Equity Leaders Program. At the conclusion, participants in the Climate Smart Technical Working Group provided recommendations on climate smart projects where an equity lens could be applied. The final team activities will be completed prior to USDN's annual equity conference later this month that I will be attending. And this will help qualify the city for equity grants and an equity fellow in 2020. Electric Mobility Roadmap is also a companion presentation we'll be getting to in just a minute. Our zero net carbon demonstration. You may have seen our tiny ZNC home at some of the public events. Pictured there on the screen is one of the heat pump water heater units that you may be more familiar with now through the REACH code effort, and an electric washer and dryer. We also have a zero net carbon video posted to our website and are now offering an induction cooktop checkout program that I hope all of you will try, in addition to energy trainings for residential and commercial audiences. Pillar 3, an economically inclusive city of opportunity. On December 11th, 2018, San Jose City Council approved the Energy and Water Building Performance Ordinance. It requires large commercial and multifamily buildings 20,000 square feet and above to track and benchmark their energy and water use with the U.S. EPA's Energy Star Portfolio Manager platform and report that data to the city on an annual basis. The first reporting deadline was May 1st, 2019 for buildings 50,000 square feet and above. And the first reporting deadline for 20,000 square feet and above will be May 1st of next year. On a rolling 5-year cycle, the buildings will also have to complete one of 2 beyond benchmarking pathways through which they will have to either demonstrate high performance or performance improvement or complete an audit, building retuning, or targeted efficiency actions with the goal of improving their building's efficiency. The Commercial Climate Leaders Challenge, also known as the Better Buildings Challenge, that will provide direct assistance to buildings affected by the BPO and while accelerating the reduction of energy and water consumption in a friendly challenge format, and that's going to be kicking off next month. And then most recently, we had passed and adopted our REACH code ordinance, including a gas prohibition on single-family dwellings and low-rise residential, 3 stories or less. So that is pretty close to hitting the mark there in terms of by 2020 having 100% of new homes be zero net energy or zero net carbon. The REACH code was heard last month and adopted. That's with the CEC for approval as of Friday, so that will be at their early December board meeting and then should go into effect on January 1st. So all these ordinances and all these emissions reductions, is climate smart bad for business? It doesn't look like that according to CARB, at least up to 2015. See GHG emissions dropping and total GDP going up during that time. We did have an outstanding item to get our Climate Smart dashboard up, and I don't know if we can click on that link on the side. Is it possible to click that link at the bottom? So this has currently has about 7 of the 24 indicators that are on page 151 of the plan. And we won't take you through the whole thing for time constraint purposes, but if you go up to our progress, that shows you where those indicators are, energy, water, mobility, economy, and then most importantly, the overall greenhouse gas emissions. So on that link, you can see a comparison between our 2008, 2014, and 2017 community-wide GHG emission inventories. And so we'll get this link out to the group so that you can kind of tool around there and see what we've done with the site. That's me. So urgency, again, is the order of the day. Our building policies are in place, although there's a lot more work to do. We have a municipal GHG inventory underway for our own buildings. Community engagement plan is ramping up, and our electric mobility roadmap is on the way. And with that, I'll take any questions.
If you'd like to go questions now, or the roadmap can be presented as well, and you can take all your questions to the end. It's pleasure of the committee.
Well, we have people who want to speak on both items in terms of comment cards. So I'm going to take the public comment for this item first, and then we can.
So there is more presentation on the electric mobility roadmap that's tied to this item.
Right.
So
I've got someone who wants to speak on both item 3 and 4.
Okay. Go for the.
Okay.
Yep.
Robin Romer.
Thank you so much. It's a very information-heavy report, and it's great work. I'm very thankful for it. I wanted to use the opportunity to highlight 3 things in the report, and as the city manager said, this office said, they belong together. And there are 3 things I want to highlight. One is, as was mentioned, we have set very ambitious goals, especially for the transportation sector, that setting goals and achieving them is 2 different things. So I'm very thankful that staff is providing the dashboard to be transparent about, are we moving in the right directions? For example, with VMT, are we making progress? Is this progress going fast enough to where we want to go? The second one is, as you're going to hear in a minute, about electromobility. And electromobility is, of course, a way to reduce GHG emissions, but I'm also thankful that the staff included in their report that electromobility alone, same with self-driving cars, do not necessarily reduce GHG emissions, because they can also contribute to sprawl. If I don't feel bad about sitting in traffic or driving my car because it's electric, I might drive more, cause more congestion. And similar, driverless cars, if I'm not the one driving it, I don't care if I'm traffic or not. So, as the memo said from staff, the key component here is to also have shared mobility, getting more people into the same vehicle. Generally, this would be maybe a bus, or just more active transportation modes. And the third finding I wanted to highlight in this context is that the memo for the next item writes that the Climate Smart San Jose, this report assesses the general plan and says, if we build out the general plan as we currently have it, we'll not achieve our climate goals. So as we have the general plan review coming up with the task force, I'm really interested to see how the task force will suggest aligning the climate plan and the climate goals with what is in our general plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And does the committee have a specific questions on this part of the presentation, or willing to wait to next one? Okay, we can move on with Ramses. Are you next?
Actually, I'm going to jump in. Jessica Zank, Deputy Director for DOT, and I am really just here to introduce Laura Stachinsky and the great work that she and her newly growing team have done to bring you a draft electric mobility roadmap for your feedback. So I wanted to commend Laura for doing a lot of this work with some technical assistance from the Shared Use Mobility Center. We're really looking forward to your feedback and then to bringing back a draft plan. Our goal is January for that. All right, Laura.
Good afternoon, Chair Davis and council members. Thank you for this opportunity. Whoops. Can I have the control? Thanks.
He's going to switch.
Thank you. As you know, transportation is the, and by extension our land use patterns, is the single largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, not only in the city, but in the state. It's also been the most difficult to get traction on. Passenger vehicles are the single largest source of emissions within the transportation sector. Climate Smart takes a multi-pronged approach to try to reduce emissions from passenger vehicles. First, we try to reduce the need to drive alone by expanding the variety of affordable, efficient, and ultimately electric-powered shared options that you can get into when you need to go somewhere. And second, making it easier for more people to get into an electric vehicle when and if they do need to drive. This approach is strongly supported by climate and transportation experts. The city won't be able to reach its greenhouse gas emissions goals and its vision for herself simply by switching from gas to electric-powered vehicles. It also helps to ensure that the benefits of electrification are made available to all. That's important because thus far, car ownership of electric vehicles has been concentrated in more affluent households and single-family neighborhoods. One reason for this disparity is it's much more difficult to get chargers installed in multifamily and rental properties. The cost of electric vehicles is also a factor. As a result, large segments of our community are not yet seeing the benefits of electrification, including neighborhoods that are disproportionately impacted by air pollution and its associated health problems. Electrifying passenger and freight vehicles in these neighborhoods could significantly reduce this hazard. The darker areas on this map are those with the highest concentration of EVs per household. The city's disadvantaged communities and low-income communities, those with the crosshatched areas, have the lowest levels. The Electric Mobility Roadmap is a 2-year plan that seeks to accelerate the city's efforts to electrify transportation. It builds on the work the city is already pursuing through the American Cities Climate Challenge, and it lays the groundwork for a more comprehensive emerging mobility action plan the city will begin work on next year. That plan will identify ways to use electrification, shared mobility, and automation to advance the common good and the city's goals. The Electric Mobility Roadmap is divided into 3 sections: infrastructure, fleet vehicles, and personal and shared mobility. The next few slides offer examples of recommended actions in each section. One of your handouts provides a complete list of all of the actions discussed in the roadmap. Those that are currently underway, ones we've made a commitment to pursue, and new recommended actions. Before I talk about our actions around climate infrastructure, charging infrastructure, I wanted to provide a bit of context. There are 3 major types of electric vehicle chargers. Level 1 is your standard 3-prong outlet. It's very slow, but it's reliable and it's readily available. Level 2 is a 240-volt outlet, the type we use for our dryers at home. The vast majority of the non-residential chargers in the city are level 2. And then fast chargers. This is an increasing more powerful fast charger that are being installed along highways and at major destinations such as shopping centers to provide faster charging for vehicles with increasingly more powerful batteries. DC fast chargers was the first generation of these fast chargers. Under the climate challenge, the city is committed to substantially increase the number of non-residential electric vehicle chargers that are available in the city. The roadmap takes the next step. It identifies how many more charger ports we need by 2025. It also identifies where we should prioritize these installations to open up more areas of the city to EV ownership and to support electric shared mobility services. The dark areas on this map are locations where we've met our short-term need, the light green, yellow, and pink, or where we have increasing levels of need. On October 22nd, the City Council will be considering a request from the San Jose Clean Energy to approve match funding for the city to participate in a state program that will provide $14 million to help install more EV chargers in the city. The Cal EVI program will go a long way toward addressing this need. Oh, yeah. Electrifying fleet vehicles is a powerful means of reducing greenhouse gas emissions given the number of miles these vehicles log per year compared to personally owned vehicles. Another advantage is that a single decision maker can affect change for large numbers of vehicles. This is also true for the city. Nearly 60% of the city's 215 police sedans, non-police sedans, are electric, either plug-in hybrid electric or all electric. The remainder are gas-powered or hybrid gas-electric vehicles. They're also old. 29 are more than 15 years old. As a result, the operating and maintenance costs for the city's gas-powered vehicles are more than twice as much per mile than its all-electric sedans. The city could reduce its emissions, cut its operating costs, boost San Jose Clean Energy's revenues, and demonstrate leadership if it were to replace all of its remaining non-police sedans that are more than 10 years old, a total of 89 vehicles over the next 2 years. To meet its climate-smart targets, the city will need to nearly triple the number of electric vehicles in the city by 2025. It will need nearly 14 times as many by 2050. To get there, we'll need to overcome 3 major barriers to EV adoption: access to charging, awareness about electric vehicles, and the cost to purchase one. The city is beginning to address the first 2 barriers through the climate challenge. It could tackle the third, cost, by organizing a group buy with other local public agencies and dealers. Communities in Oregon and Colorado have done so and seen significant increases in EV sales. In the last several years, the city has seen an explosion of shared mobility options, particularly e-scooters, shared bikes, and more recently, electric assist bikes. The city also has shared vehicle options for trips that require a car. Zipcar has offered its station-based car share service in San Jose since 2012. Its 15 vehicles are clustered in the greater downtown and North San Jose. None of them are electric. Car sharing and ride sharing services as Uber and Lyft provide alternatives to those who can't afford or choose not to own a car. Ride-hailing also offers an option for those who are unable to drive. The key is to expand the availability of these services in terms of their cost and service area, as well as shift them to electric power vehicles. The roadmap proposes that staff reach out to Zipcar to see if it would be willing to include electric vehicles in its fleet and expand its service area, to pursue potential partnerships with other car share operators that offer complementary services that would be willing to serve a wider geographic area, include electric vehicles, and offer discount rates to lower income residents. And last, explore ways to encourage ride-hailing drivers to shift to EVs. At a prior Transportation and Environment Committee meeting, Councilmember Perales had raised a question about the life cycle emissions of electric vehicles compared to gas-powered ones. More greenhouse gas emissions are emitted in the production of electric vehicles than gas-powered ones. However, the lower emissions associated with driving an electric vehicle offset this. Nationally, on average, total life cycle emissions for all electric vehicles are approximately 50% that of gas-powered ones. It's 75% lower in California due to our relatively greener mix of energy sources. That will improve over time as California makes progress toward its goal of 100% carbon-neutral electricity by 2025. San Jose's electricity mix is already greener than the state's and will reach 100% carbon-neutral even sooner. Here's an illustration of the break-even point for 2 types of all-electric vehicles in California. Approximately 6 months for a Nissan Leaf and 16 months for a Tesla Model S, based on typical uses of this vehicle. This is the next steps for the roadmap. We, of course, would like to hear your feedback on the draft plan. In December, we'll present a revised version of the plan to the Smart Cities and Service Improvement Committee. And then in January, we plan to present the final plan to City Council to seek approval.
Thank you very much. We're all available for your questions and comments.
Thank you. Robin, would you like to speak again?
Item 4.
Gotcha. Thank you. Just want to make sure.
Yep.
All right. Comments?
Yeah. Thanks, Steph.
Councilmember Perales.
Thank you. So actually, it was on the break-even point. If you wanted to roll back to the slide there, and I guess intuitively, it's telling me that in order to make a Tesla Model S, guess it takes more time and it's requiring more energy or whatever. That's kind of what the assumption is, right? For that versus a Nissan Leaf.
The battery.
It's the battery itself. And is this the case, I guess, because the battery there is more complex, more efficient? Like what, and is that something that bigger, right? Is that something that's going to change over time?
Yes, it's a much bigger battery, and there are a lot of emissions produced in getting the lithium to make the battery. However, there's a lot of research going on into batteries that will make them much more efficient.
Okay, and then so that's where that break-even point will continue to decrease.
Correct, because when you drive an EV, there's no emissions as opposed to a gas car. You're consistently emitting greenhouse gas emissions and other pollutants.
Okay, and it's interesting to see the major difference there. You didn't denote it in here, but I don't know if you know offhand sort of what the I I guess, what is it called, whatever the mileage that the gas or that the battery will go for like a Nissan Leaf versus a Tesla? Do we know offhand like sort of the difference? How far?
I believe a Nissan Leaf is roughly 80 miles. I'm looking at Ken for.
I have a Nissan Leaf, and it has about 150-mile range.
Okay.
And I'll be breaking even in a couple months.
And the chair just pointed out to me that that's what the mile denotation is for the midsize, right? That's 84 miles. Is that what that's denoting there for the battery? Or no? What's on the slide?
Oh, I think that's total miles to get to your break-even point.
Oh, that's to get to the break-even
Yeah.
point. Got it. Okay. Okay. I was just when I saw that there, that definitely stood out. It does make sense now, and I look forward to that continue to drop because that is an important point that not a lot of people think about, right, in regards to this break-even, that what is it actually taking to build some of these vehicles, and there's a bit of an offset there, although already very low. I mean, 6 months, I don't know anybody that's not purchasing a car brand new and not driving it at least 6 months, right? And then 16 months is also not something that's hard to believe that people are going to be going well beyond that. So already, good numbers. In regards to, I don't know if you had the slide up there, I don't know if I missed it, but it's in the report, or the draft report on page 6. It's the electric vehicle market development, and it shows electric vehicle sales shares, and it's kind of showing San Jose's graph. Do we have that graph? No. I didn't see it up on the slide, so that's fine. So I'm curious, and it looks like our trajectory is pretty good right now. We're well above the state average, above San Francisco. Are we the highest in the state?
Just shut it off. That's the San Jose metropolitan area, which includes Santa Clara County and San Benito County. It's not the city of San Jose.
That's fine. That sort of gets, that gets incorporated a lot of times. So we just like to call it San Jose area as well. So I'm glad you did too. But would that be? Are we sort of? Looks like we're obviously outproducing California, San Francisco area. Are we one of the best producing or fastest kind of growing regions in regards to this market development?
The region is the Northern California, the San Francisco Bay Area is got the top 5 cities in the state.
Okay, and based on anybody's expertise, do we think we're actually going to hit our goals? I see there for the state, looking at constant growth has us at 36% share by 2030 rather than 50%. But that's at constant growth. And so what is our thought on that?
I think we are probably almost certainly going to be wrong if we try to totally predict that, but I do think that there's a lot of hope in the kind of changing marketplace, especially with the introduction of more and more diversity in the types of vehicles that are available electric. We've seen that different market groups are being included in, and that, we certainly hope and expect will continue to shift that curve for the better.
And are you speaking more towards our own personal goals for the city of San Jose?
Yes.
And so do we have, I guess I don't know, thinking about trigger points along the way where we would say, hey, we don't think we're going to get there, right? So what could we do? For instance, this great opportunity that was in the, the last report in regards to charging stations, right? That I think $14 million when I liked the report, how it said, subject to council approval on the pledged $4 million. It's already been pledged, but subject to our approval. But nonetheless, the $14 million investment there, right, in charging. So that's what I'm kind of interested in is if as we're moving along, at what points do we determine, you know what, we don't think we're going to get there, or we're off on some of our targets. What can we do, right? What sort of investment do you make that makes a difference in regards to the report, the draft report we just looked at, talking about, I think it was Tesla and GM sort of no longer having already reached the 200,000 sales of EVs, and so no longer being available for the rebate or incentive. So like in the efforts to try to, well, all right, what do we do? Do we try to up that number from the 200,000? And so that's what I'm interested in, right? And so that could be something we lobby at the state or the federal level. But that's kind of what I'm interested in.
Councilor, I think that's the type of feedback that we'll take in, and as we bring forward kind of the final plan for council approval, we'll look to refine some of those types of things. I think that's the type of feedback that we're looking for. This is kind of broadly put out as our draft, and those types of specific sets of feedback, I think, are helpful for us to really refine towards the final plan in January.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, yeah.
I completely agree with Jim, and I would just offer that, even though we're doing well relative to others, we by no means are kind of satisfied with where we are. It's part of why the roadmap has these very specific pieces about dealer education and engagement, the potential for the group buy that Laura mentioned, how to bring kind of more people into the sense that this is affordable, this is something accessible to them, and it will really meet their needs.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you.
I have a couple questions, not on this presentation, but on the first one. The 1 gigawatt solar goal that we have, is it on the dashboard for how much we have now? How far we are toward that goal?
We do have that on the site in terms of installed renewables in San Jose. That's on there.
Okay, do you know how many homes we need to add to get to the 1 gigawatt, or are we not measuring it in homes? How are we measuring how we're going to get there?
I would say we are behind on achieving that, and we need to ramp up incentives in order to get more of that done, with some of the state funding drying up for that.
Okay. And then the other question I had on that was, I know we have plans for the buildings we're building going forward, like Fire Station 37, but what are our plans for retrofitting current buildings like this one or the tower?
So when we bring the gas prohibition ordinance forward on the 29th to council, which is just the follow-up to REACH code, there'll be a policy adoption recommendation there too for the municipal facilities. That's just for new construction, but I think we want to have room in that policy to address retrofits at the end of life of equipment. If something is just done and it's a gas using appliance, can we switch that out for electric? So the draft I saw earlier today looks like we're going to have room to address that.
Okay, good. And then this is kind of a small thing, but I just realized I didn't know the answer to it. In the memo on page 14, pillar 3, where we're talking about the building energy and water performance ordinance, there's a paragraph in there about a benchmarking report submission fee to fund program implementation set at $150, and it looks like this is for commercial and multifamily buildings, but it talks about in the first paragraph about buildings 50,000 square feet and larger, and then 20,000 square feet. Which group or both groups does the fee apply to?
To both. We started with the 50,000 and above, which was essentially mimicking the state's requirement, but getting a little bit more robust by doing it locally. The next year, meaning next May in 2020, the 20,000 square foot and above will come into effect, and those building owners will be required to submit that fee as well. We have, in order to run the program, there's a staffing requirement, and so that's what that's going for. It's essentially fee recovery.
Understood. Are we concerned that the fee may actually be a disincentive for people to report?
So far, no, but we'll know more next year. The compliance rate, it's a little bit hard to tell. The data is getting better, but I'd say we're in the 70 to 80% range for the 50,000 and above. Once we get to those smaller buildings, it may be a little bit harder to get their attention.
Okay. And then on another paragraph, it talked about ESD received 645 reports in total, and 451 buildings are considered in compliance, but then it talked about how there was some issues with the data. What are the issues with the data?
We still don't have a complete understanding of our building inventory here. It's much better than what the state's was, that they didn't really have any inventory at all or any plans to try to understand that. So as we develop that using several different data sources, it's getting better. But I think we still have some uncertainty about how many exactly are out there.
So how many buildings of the 50,000 in the category of 50,000 square feet or larger? That's the question.
We think I think there were 2,500 plus in the entire universe of 20,000 and above. We think the 50,000 and above is a little under 50% of that. But
Okay.
again, we're kind of trying to get a hold on that final number.
Okay. Thank you. I think I would like a more detailed briefing about this in particular.
Sure.
We can take that offline. All right. Any other questions from my colleagues?
I'll move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion carries. Thank you. Thank you.
Afternoon, committee. Transportation and Environment Committee and Chair. Ramses Madhu, the Division Manager of Planning, Policy, and Sustainability in the Department of Transportation. And I'm here to talk about the broad transportation planning efforts that are underway. We've been talking a lot about ambitious goals and how we really need to change a lot of what's happening in the city to be able to meet them. And we are in DOT really taking on the task of translating goals, ambitious goals, into implementation plans. And that's what this is about. Let's see. There's a lot of information in this. I'm going to go through it as quickly as I can to kind of introduce and make sure you guys are aware of the work that's going on. Of course, ask any questions whenever, but if you guys want more detailed briefings, please do ask us, and we'll, of course, do that as well. So let's dive in. Oops. Get my controls right. Here we go. So quickly, we're going to kind of go through the direction that we've been given that we're using to follow. Talk a little bit about the Access and Mobility Plan, and then start talking about some of the area plans and other modal plans that we're working on. So the city's general plan is incredibly ambitious transportation-wise. It wants to take a city that has been constructed first from a streetcars network downtown into other areas, and that kind of has these old world, almost European bones in it. Then that history kind of led us through a suburban development phase that really let out a lot of the land use patterns that we're used to outside of the downtown. And now we're trying to kind of maybe get back to or learn from those older lessons about having more transit-connected and kind of people-centered city. In the general plan, there are two overarching statements that are given as to the direction of all policies for transportation. One of them is to design cars for people, not just cars. So really focusing on the human aspect of the transportation system. And the second one is to promote San Jose as a walking and bicycle-first city, enabling people of all ages and abilities to get around and use our streets without the fear of vehicles. Speaking of ambitious plans and goals, these are the modal goals, we call them, that have been put out in the general plan as well as the Climate Smart Plan. These numbers are incredibly aggressive, and we are developing the plans to try and get there. Of course, we look most at that top line, that drive alone. We're looking at cutting roughly in half to go from a current roughly current 76 down to just 40% by 2040, and Climate Smart doubles down even further and says we should be going all the way to 12% by 2050. That is the kind of furthest envelope of planning that we have out there in terms of goals. All right, how are we going to get there? Well, we do have some stuff already on the way. The downtown area is kind of one of the nerve centers of making this whole story work, right? Currently, latest numbers that we have on hand, there's about 16,000 per day going through the Drier station, people using all the transit facilities there. We expect with BART and Caltrain electrification, both projects that are already underway in various ways, to increase that to just over 100,000 a day. And then by once high-speed rail and the Caltrain business plan, that next improvement level of Caltrain come in, we're expecting 140,000 a day through Drier. That's the same as SFO. It's an immense amount of people. It really is going to change what it is like. And we don't expect it to only change downtown. We expect it to become a kind of nerve center for making the rest of the city also able to live by transit and other modes than cars. All right, so we've talked a little bit about the Access and Mobility Plan before. We will be coming for an in-depth presentation in December on this item as well. But real quick here, we finished phase 1. We've talked about that a little bit, and we're going to talk about the directives in the next slide that came out of that. That phase helped us create and collect all the different policy directives from throughout the city's guiding documents and really give us a way to understand transportation as a whole and helped us draft some KPIs and an RFP to go into phase 2 and 3. Phase 2 is really that building the strategies, building the framework for understanding the city together, and really starting to come up with what are the projects we really need to take on, or the types of projects we need to take on. It's also going to go deeply into an organizational analysis, trying to understand how we as a city, particularly in DOT, can be better lined up with those goals and those types of projects to make sure we are ready and enabled to deliver on them. And phase 3 is the kind of keep us honest system. This is going to be a data-based system that will help us track which projects are going out, prioritize those projects, so we're making sure we are spending our money and efforts on the ones that have the most impact towards our goals, and help us keep those strategies fresh. So when we get data after projects are finished, we'll be able to change what our strategies are if we are wrong on some of the hypotheses as to how they were supposed to, what impacts they were supposed to have. All right, so this is really the outcome of phase 1 of the Access and Mobility Plan. These are the transportation directives. They are guiding how we think about transportation and the key performance indicators that we're building into the next phase 2 and 3. We'll dig further into these in December. All right, so now let's start digging into some of the underway plans that are looking at either various, first we're going to start with modes and then we'll get into the area plans. As some of you, or most of you probably already know, and thank you so much for all the help you've been giving us, your staff have been giving us and getting folks out there and getting public events for this one happening. We are updating our bike plan. We have scope is 2025. It's a very ambitious plan, taking what is already a pretty built-out transportation or bike network and really bringing it to that next level. Really trying to build out an all ages and ability network across the city. We're proposing around 400 miles of all ages and abilities pathways or travel bikeways across the city out of this plan. It is expected to come forward in spring for completion. After that, we have the Emerging Mobility Group. You just heard from Laura Stachinsky, and we were just able to kind of boot this group up and really find a formation and a focus to do this. This group is looking at shared mobility, autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, and really trying to figure out how to land these different technologies and accelerate them in such a way that we're actually meeting the public good. There's an immense amount of promise in these technologies, there's also quite a bit of risk. The easiest example is autonomous vehicles, in effect, just creating huge amounts of new vehicle miles traveled and actually reducing density and things like that. And so we're really working on how do we kind of shape and mold these markets from the position that we can as a city to getting them to help us. All right. These are the area plans. They're called Multimodal Transportation Improvement Plans, MTIPs. Right now, we have a very broad swath of them, kind of stretching all the way from the west end there in Stevens Creek, going all the way out to the Berryessa Urban Village and into the east side. These plans are focused implementation plans per area. What they do is they translate those big, ambitious goals of the city and then implement the visions and kind of more refined goals that we get out of urban village plans or other area plans that we get from the land use side. We take those and we turn them into network level transportation plans. So this means creating clear vision and implementation of how are cars going to continue to work, how are bikes, how are pedestrian networks, how is transit actually going to fit into these areas to help us accelerate and meet those goals. An important point here is at the end of these plans, our object is to have lists of projects that we feel will help us get there, as well as kind of individual prioritization of those projects within the plan areas. All right, I'm going to go through each one a little bit. The Berryessa Urban Village is being planned in concert with the Urban Village plan there. It's trying to figure out how we can land that BART station in the most kind of accessible way possible. We're trying to figure out how we can help turn this area that's kind of half residential and then half industrial into a place where people can get around, not by car, and really get to this transit station in a safe and accessible way. This plan is expected to reach y'all in spring. All right, Movimento. This one is our most advanced plan in terms of timing and development. It's for the 6 urban village plans along the Santa Clara corridor there, Alum Rock Santa Clara corridor. And this is, again, we're trying to really figure out how to make that BART station work best and give the communities access to that. Solve things like getting over 101 and ensuring that people can get around by transit, bike, and walking. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. I hope you can check in on it and give us any feedback shortly as we're trying to get to the end of this one. All right, we have the downtown transportation plan. This plan is just about to start. We're waiting for some fun Caltrain issues to be resolved. But this is going to take on the network downtown and how to link all of the modal networks together. Similar to all the other plans, the difference here is we don't really have an urban village-like vision plan to implement this. It was brought, there was a letter sent in by the Diridon Area Neighborhood Group asking questions of this one. This will not hold up the ongoing or the expected development proposal coming in later this week from Google. We will make sure to accelerate the elements of this plan that need to speak and kind of be decided before that work is complete. We also have the West San Jose MTIP. Now this one was built on the basis of the urban village plans that have already been adopted in that area. While it is not fully kind of fleshed out, we're still working on some interjurisdictional let's say relationships, but we are already moving forward with some of the suggestions that have been produced in this draft plan. For example, the forest, if you've seen Forest right north of the mall there, we've already restriped that and made that into a multimodal corridor in much better fashion than it used to be. And we've also applied for some more funding to improve Winchester's design. And we actually just got funding to do some deeper modeling to kind of help support this plan. All right, I'm going to leave you with this last slide here. And this is kind of how we're thinking about the work plan for this whole group, kind of connecting everything together and making sure we have a holistic system. All right, so one, we're really trying to set out these big framework pieces. How do you think about a 180 square mile city that has horse ranches and high rises in one way? How do you do that? Right? It's pretty hard on all topics. And so we're really doing that in transportation. That's what the access and mobility plan is supposed to do. And it's also going to give us the tools to kind of stay fresh, stay honest, and kind of keep us focused on our goals. After that, we're really looking at all these modes, right? How do we make the bike system as in itself work? How do we deal with all these kind of the blender of new emerging mobility systems that come up and potentially disappear or grow, or all these kinds of things? And then we're also booting up, actually, one I didn't talk about in there is the pedestrian plan. We're just defining it, going out for a grant later this month, actually. And then we're really applying all of those strategies and thinking into the area plans and really drawing down as close to the ground as we can in terms of project lists and prioritization. Thank you very much. I'll take questions.
Thank you. All right, Robin.
Thank you again, and thank you again, great work, very exciting. Looking forward to everything that's in there, and I wanted to highlight also that the community engagement for some of these projects, especially the bike plan. I think every time like 3 people met in the city, John Brazil was there to show the bike plan and really meeting the people where they are. I think it's very much appreciated. Looking at all this new stuff is really exciting. I think the tough question, this kind of ties back to the item we heard in the beginning about the TIFs, about Evergreen, about North San Jose. What do we do with the old plans? Because the old plans look nothing like this. And John Russo alluded to it, that there need to be changes and that there are legal challenges. But I would like you to keep an eye on these old plans and what changes can we make there and address them. And we might not disagree on what those changes should be, but those plans need to be updated and brought into compliance with the new ideas of how our transportation system should work as well. And also these newer, more active plans are also a lot cheaper than the ones that we're currently financing with the TIF. So I'm really looking forward and seeing updates to the old plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Esparza?
Yeah, it's really a comment, and I know you've heard this from me before, but as we move forward on these really, truly exciting plans, that we also include an equity lens. And what does that mean? In parts of the city, like in the En Movimiento slide for East San Jose, but really in other parts that we're not actively planning right now, we have residents that get up at 3:30 a.m., take their kids, go to their first job when there isn't public transit, when it's probably they can't load up a bicycle and go to work, right? And so that as we move forward with this planning, they go to their first job at 3:30 a.m., go and do whatever it is they do, drop off a kid to school and go, and go on to the next thing. And that the system that we create includes them too, right? And so that's my only comment. Thank you.
Thanks. Councilmember Arenas?
Thank you. I'm going to jump on the comment that was just made about the transition from the old plans to the new plans. I know we've discussed this before, Jessica, and I have the east side, the Evergreen East Hills development plan kind of tethered into our general plan update for that very reason. And so one of the questions I had is because the state is mandating us to go into VMT, what is the time frame for us to actually do that, to transition from these old plans into these newer plans or update to VMT?
Sure. So the timeline for all jurisdictions throughout California to be operating under a vehicle miles traveled system for their CEQA analysis, their environmental analysis, is July of 2020. And that said, the state is not requiring that we look back at things that were previously approved. It is saying moving forward, what you approve will be looked at through that new lens. So there's not a requirement that we look back differently. There's just an opportunity to look forward differently. I mean, that's the broad answer to your question, but if you...
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, it kind of leads into my next question, because I appreciate that you have these plans that we reviewed today. The one plan that I feel is missing is the one around light rail to Eastridge, because that will, connect the light rail to one of the most busiest transit centers over at Eastridge, and I just don't see that we are deliberately planning for that, even though that is probably happening sooner than any of the other, maybe possibly the other plans, because they plan to break ground next year for utility relocation.
Yeah, the Capitol Light Rail project and the Eastridge extension, especially with what we heard from the county fairly recently about Reed Hillview, and the city council stance there, I think that is an opportunity, a key opportunity. And the other one, which is not in our current work plan, but is in our thinking, is also the Monterey corridor and access to stations and nodes throughout the corridor. So those are two, actually, that are not in our current work program, but are kind of on that horizon.
And so what is the time frame to actually look at either one of those? Well, of course, you know which one I'm going to ask you about.
So most of this work is supported by grants. I will, make that clear that we have been pretty aggressively applying for grant funding to support these efforts. There are a few of these grants that we've been particularly successful with over time, and thankfully, they are currently offered on an annual basis, and sometimes they're staggered, so we can look for multiple within a year. So we're trying to think out, not biting off too much more than we can chew at a single time, but lining up the next one so we're ready to chew on a next one when the current planning efforts have kind of been wrapped up appropriately. So, I don't know if we want to speculate, but I think we're kind of starting to look a year and a half out in terms of what are we applying for now that will be funded kind of, we hope, over the next year, and then we could be working on within the following year.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. And I really hope, I'm a knock on wood, that our light rail to Eastridge will actually break in ground in the next couple of years, and we'll see it to fruition in a couple of years after that. And so I think, we need to be very, very deliberate about some of the improvements that are taking place, especially around Tully. There's a safe corridor improvement plan that'll happen soon. Of course, this plan with light rail to Eastridge. And what we heard last week in our study session, which is the displacement of small businesses and how these kinds of transit centers actually create that for our smaller businesses. Although I don't know, for that area it might improve, but you just never know unless you have a plan, right? So I'll look forward to working with you on our, whatever you want to call it, plan for light rail to Eastridge and for Tully, off of Tully. So the last question is how are you working with planning and housing to actually consider some of this displacement strategies as you build out in any of these other plans?
So actually, I put this slide back up because these are our kind of a quick version of all the goals that the city has given us. And as you can see, number 2 is equity and affordability, right? Transportation's primary impact is on increasing the cost of living somewhere, right? If you're thinking about equity. And so we need to kind of figure out how, as we go forward, we can make sure that the money is being spent in ways that reflect our values best, right? And so that can mean everything from where facilities go and how they look and really who they're intended to serve, right? So we're going to kind of analyze all of those things as we go through these plans. What we're currently doing in the active plans is doing an immense amount of listening. Making sure we get out there in multiple languages. We've had things as focus groups only in Vietnamese. We've had other meetings only in Spanish. We're really making sure that we are hearing all the voices so that as we craft these plans, we are incorporating those voices in the actual implementation plans. And we still haven't kind of connected all the dots with the displacement study session from that just happened, and we still need to kind of work through and make sure we're hitting all those points as well.
I appreciate that that segment of my district, and I was showing Councilmember Perales the tremendous amount of space that we have in District 8. It's just huge. It's probably maybe 4 times as big as District 5. I was showing them, like, District 5 is so small, but it's the overcrowding, right? In terms of really dense housing, or those type of conditions that people have created for themselves in order to afford living in that area. And so I just hope that all of those, for this particular part of my district, I think it'll be a relief to have mass transit and to be able to really utilize the rest of the lines, and to be able to get to Milpitas, to go to BART, all the way to San Francisco if that's where they're going, but really just to have another option. So I appreciate that you're talking about equity. I think this is one of the areas where we definitely need to have more. I think if light rail would have started in the east side, you would see light rail a lot more. There would be a lot more ridership and a lot more. It would make sense economically for some folks. So hopefully we'll start with the east side once again.
I think I would just also offer that if you have other ideas offline, wake up in the middle of the night, and you think about a different way of approaching, we do work with our colleagues in housing, economic development, planning all the time, and we'll continue to do so on this. Reaching the people who get up at 3 a.m. to go to that first job is something that is just extraordinarily difficult. We did a really interesting project in partnership with the mayor's office and Shireen Shantosham and her team over the summer, and had people spending a lot of time in the Buena Vista neighborhood between the hours of 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. in the park, because that was when people actually had downtime. And so I think things like that are approaches that we're trying, and we're trying to think about then what makes those scalable or not, with the kind of resource levels that we all can put together. So, your thoughts are very much welcome.
Absolutely, we can gather all of our thoughts together offline, because I do have, there's a lot of potential out there in terms of growth, especially with Reed Hillview possibly closing in 10 years. But with or without it closing, there's just a lot of need in that particular neighborhood to have more mass transit options. We can see it because the transit center there at East Ridge is one of the highest used in the county. So anyways, I just wanted to make sure that there was some sort of coordination with planning, with housing, especially when we just discussed the displacement of small businesses, and that's being taken into account as you're moving forward with these plans. Thank you.
Councilmember Perales.
Thank you. A couple things. I'll start with the letter from the Dearborn Area Neighborhood Group. I know you responded to it in regards to looks like one sentence they had where they said they're deeply concerned that if the downtown transportation plan is not done by the time that Google expects to get their CEQA documents approved, it could delay their project approval, and you mentioned that that won't be the case. I wasn't reading that as their most important line. I was reading sort of the next one where they said that we won't have enough information to determine if the project will have any adverse impacts to the residents of San Jose. And then their recommendation is that the time frame for this plan, which i.e. the, specifically to them, the downtown transportation plan, be revised so it can be completed at the same time as the consideration of the Google development. So if you can actually respond to those two, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't believe accelerating the total plan is a good idea. What we want to do is make sure that you all have the right information when you need to make a decision as to approve that project. And we believe that information is the network information, which means this is the way bikes should be traveling through the area and how they're going to connect through and out of and into that project area, and so on and so forth for each mode. What we're going to do is accelerate that work so that we can kind of create the bones so that we can make good decisions, and then refine what that means outside of that project's area and kind of the eastern downtown after that. So we don't feel like accelerating the totality of the plan is necessary, and we're going to really just focus on those areas that we really need to at first to make sure that we do generate the right level of information for when that decision comes forward.
So considering that acceleration of the sort of the pathway for the bicyclists, or the as you described, the bones of the network, how do we also ensure then, I guess, or give them assurance that we're going to not have any adverse impacts on the residents?
So that project gets its own individual analysis, just like any other development project. So incredibly importantly, that happens not only with these plans, right? These plans are, how are we going to do these bigger things? How do we ask for the right things when the developers comes in? So it kind of helps us think through how to mitigate things. But the project itself must do its own transportation analysis through the CEQA process, as well as outside of that through what we call the local transportation analysis. We've been very integral in helping devise the scope of work for that analysis to make sure that that's not happening.
Great, thank you. I'll ask, because this was addressed to the committee, if staff can draft a response on behalf of the committee, and that way you can at least respond to those. If that's okay with the chair, I'll put that into the motion. So.
Yes, that would be great. And I would also, I have the same question for the DISC process and the timing. It sounds like the kind of the into and out of Diridon Station for each mode is what you're accelerating for the Google decision. Is that going to be in time enough for DISC? We've had trouble getting those two processes together and on a similar timeline, so I'm wondering if we're going to meet all three of these things now in the middle.
I would say we're bringing together the critical elements of each of them in a way where we can kind of see, how does it work together, kind of in a holistic way. So I think Ramsey's point on bringing the critical elements that affect each other at the right time is the way to do it. And it's just an immensely complex process. And I think the people involved are working very hard on trying to do it. And it's just an immense amount of information on each of the projects. But I think that's the way to do it, is to bring forward the key elements that need to be brought forward at the right time.
Right. And I'd like to ask Councilmember Peralez in your motion to make sure that this also becomes part of the community outreach for the DISC and the Google project as well.
Yeah, so I'll consider that part of the motion. I'll move approval of staff report with those two amendments in regards to writing the letter, and then, as our chair just stated. So that's the motion. And then I do have a couple more questions. Just wanted to get that out of the way. Thank you. So in regards to a couple things actually, but this is in relation to VTA. So I look at the East San Jose plan, and particular like the San Antonio crossing over 101, and recognizing that we kind of lost an opportunity for grant funding for the bikeway there. And so curious what that looks like, and not just in this regard, but other opportunities where we're working with VTA. For instance, on a positive note, from what Councilmember Morenos was just talking about on equity and how VTA incorporated an additional 5 points for disadvantaged communities, right, as an opportunity for getting some of the bike and ped improvement dollars from Measure B. Yes. So I didn't see it in the report here, but where we tie in the partnership with VTA, considering a lot of these transportation improvements, whether it's buses, light rail, as was pointed out, right? The ability to get the grant dollars for, and now an extra allocation to disadvantaged communities. The grant that we were applying for I think the San Antonio over 101 crossing that looks like it's not going to happen, at least at the moment. Just how are we tying in all of those efforts? And so it looks like Jessica's saying no, maybe we are, but
so just a clarification, we are using some OBAG money originally from VTA to make improvements on San Antonio Street over 101. So that project has been rescoped a couple times from other projects into this current one, and so you may have seen it on a delayed list, but it is moving forward. It's moving.
That's not the message I had. I chair the Congestion Management Committee, and this was the only project not moving forward. And so it's fine, we can talk about it offline, but the main point for this conversation, right, was in tying in how so many of these things are sort of connected, right, with what we do at VTA or what VTA does. And so I'm just kind of curious on how we're fitting that in. I just didn't necessarily see it in the plan, but are these things that like we're going to, for instance, be wanting to pick out areas to lobby for, or areas to help make some improvements along with our partner VTA?
Yeah, I'll make 3 comments. One, we need transit to work better at a local level in San Jose and in the Valley. It is not working well now, and it needs some significant shots in the arm to get there. And we're working with VTA really closely. All of these plans have a VTA member hanging out with us, kind of thinking things through. They're usually on a steering committee of some sort or on the TAC that kind of supports it. One, we just need to help VTA find a way through its operational issues that it's happening right now. Right. So, for example, and then 2, really the projects. How are we helping? I would kind of reflect. We need to help them as much as they need to help us. So here we're considering things like public service lanes that would allow buses and emergency vehicles to travel through the area at a much faster rate. So that one, we need to help them kind of understand that they can think bigger. And get to a place where they can make statements about, we're not just going to kind of deliver BART and where are they going next, right? And really support that work, the high capacity transit work that's about to come out of there. Really, really important to making all of this work. So it's kind of on the transit side. There's also just the funding element, right? You're talking about kind of the relationship to funding, and it seems to me like their funding mechanisms are going towards a lot of support for us, right? They're really trying to make sure, like you just pointed out, the great thing that we really fought for is the 5 extra points for the communities of concern. But much of their funding has moved towards a multimodal perspective, and that's actually not only them; that's all the way up to the state level. We're seeing a lot of work go that way. But yeah, we're working with them constantly. We bring them in constantly on that. You want to add anything?
Nope. I think that's it. But we will get to the bottom as soon as possible on the question of the specific project.
Thank you. Another, for instance, right, is the San Fernando sort of better bikeway project, and the installation that we've done of these bus stops, and then VTA now moving the bus route over to Santa Clara, making for sort of void the bus stop installation that we did, which was rather costly. So just some of those, again, right, sort of what I'm hoping to kind of see is just a a stronger way of creating a relationship between what it is our goals are achieving and knowing that so much is dependent upon what VTA is doing or not doing, or in this case, San Fernando undoing. So just it's kind of, right, that's, for me, important in us achieving these goals. And, I know that if Councilmember Carrasco was here, she'd be talking about the bus rapid transit, probably, right? So I think this is a case all across the board. So just to...
I think it's worth responding to that. So the bus stop and bus routing changes through downtown, those decisions were made in conversation with us. So those weren't a surprise to us at all. They came at a certain kind of somewhat awkward juncture in that project's life, the San Fernando Bikeways project. But we do see it as the right decision for the long term, and it will support that project by being able, when we go through the hardscape version of that plan, we do have the $10 million to implement that project in full and for permanent use. And so I just want to make sure that it doesn't come off that they somehow surprised us or anything. We worked through that with them, and actually we asked them to some degree to make that as impactful and as supportive of the San Fernando becoming a bikeway and Santa Clara really becoming this real transit artery. Which allows for much better transit use and all that, right? You can walk up to Santa Clara, wait for 2 to 5 minutes, and you will get a ride up and down Santa Clara Street in either direction once this all comes through. And that's a really good kind of level of service kind of perspective on transit, and having them separated like that might not always be the best way to do it.
We asked them that years ago, is my understanding, though, right? I mean, and to your point, the main issue here is not what is happening, it's the timeliness or untimeliness of it. And so that's where I find it hard to believe that, right, that we can say that we were in conversation with them on making this happen, if that, in my mind, right, should have happened then prior to us making this major investment on our part on installing these raised, bus stops. And so, because that's a waste of money on our part, right? And it's because now the timely nature, untimely nature of them deciding, okay, I think we will move the routes. Although the moving of the routes might not have even happened if we would not have put in the bike lanes, right? So it's goes back to where what I was hoping to kind of see, and I didn't necessarily see in here, was how are we going to partner with VTA on an ongoing basis on all of these aspects that are going to be intertwined.
This is getting a little bit into the weeds, but just so that folks know, we started a practice of monthly coordination meetings with VTA about 2.5 years ago, and that was at the suggestion of Nuria Fernandez in conversation with the mayor, and we have found them to be very valuable forums for discussion of items of mutual interest. Maybe we didn't even know they were of mutual interest until we got in the practice of sitting down quite so regularly on kind of all the things that we're working on. So I think any other suggestions that you have about, just like Ramses mentioned, with the tax for our work, we similarly serve on the tax for their work. We're trying to really intertwine, but with many moving pieces on various projects, sometimes like in the case of the San Fernando and Next network changes, the timing didn't align as well as we would like. That's true.
Yeah, thank you. And the last one is similar in working with other agencies, but in this case, it's not necessarily VTA, although VTA would be part of it, but it's working with, this one gets a little harder, Santa Clara, Cupertino, Campbell. And this is on the west, right, the West San Jose plan. The sentence in here says, the West San Jose Multimodal Transportation Improvement Plan is located entirely within San Jose and borders the cities of Santa Clara to the north, Campbell to the south, and Cupertino to the west. So I get, it's obviously what we have ability to actually control, so what's in our borders. But how ridiculous would it be, right, if we have these connections in two places like up to Stevens Creek Boulevard, but then not across Stevens Creek Boulevard, or, right? And so I just, I think I don't know if there's a difference between the layers of, sort of what the plan allows us, or what we are able to actually do within the city boundaries versus a broader vision that takes you know, the exact border out of the picture. For instance, Santa Clara and along Stevens Creek Boulevard. Safe to say Stevens Creek Boulevard, major thoroughfare. Nobody would think it's wise to stop planning at a major thoroughfare and then say, let Santa Clara do whatever they want on the other side of that. It just doesn't make sense, right? And I used to cross that as a kid, and I actually got hit on my bike crossing Stevens Creek at Kylie. Because I went to Eisenhower in Santa Clara, but I lived over in San Jose. But if you go just a block back, you're into a residential neighborhood on a lot of those parts, and at that point, it might make a little more sense to sort of to not necessarily have to impede on Santa Clara's like design abilities. And even whatever we did propose doesn't mean it has to happen clearly. But the point is that, you know, do we have a buffer zone, I guess? Do we have a bigger vision that says our West San Jose area is bordered by these different cities, including some major thoroughfares? How do we better bleed over into that? So it sounds like my chair has a response.
Yes, I do have a response. So through VTA, council member or vice mayor Jones and I have a working group with Santa Clara, Cupertino, and Campbell on the Stevens Creek corridor. Awesome. So we are talking about that. Although I will say, not everybody on that group is transit positive and willing to make changes. So
yeah,
it's an ongoing discussion.
I appreciate you guys taking the lift on that. I'm sort of fortunate within the downtown core to be surrounded by San Jose areas, and so we don't have that problem. We're well connected into our other districts. But similarly, we should allow our residents in District 1 and 6 to be well connected into the neighboring cities. And we shouldn't necessarily allow the politics to stop it. So I wish you luck in that opportunity. But I do think, whether it's that work being incorporated here, or again, a sort of a second layer, at least with this area, where we talk about the connectivity into these other cities, recognizing we can't make those improvements, but yet we sort of value them. So these buffering areas, where I would love to see that in there, where we sort of are talking about, we're not just ending at our border because it's our border, but that are recognizing our neighbors, including one of our council members used to live in San Jose and then cross over one of these borders to go to school, So it's just a reality. So
So let me respond to that a little bit. Thanks to the pioneering work by Vice Mayor and Councilwoman Davis. We've been following up. We've had almost a 2-year staff level integrated work to support that effort. And we have so we have the city of Cupertino, and the county of Santa Clara and ourselves have all passed supporting resolutions to support a interjurisdictional complete street study of the entire corridor, as well as giving early support for high capacity transit down the corridor. City of Santa Clara has it agendized for late November. We also, all of those same agencies, Cupertino, City and County of Santa Clara, as well as VTA, wrote an RFI for new transit systems that would kind of do the airport to Diridon down the Stevens Creek as the route. We just received all of the submissions for that, 24 of them in all, and we're just starting the process of digesting that. So I think that there is a kind of group of people trying to figure out this nettle of interjurisdictional visioning, and we are very much at the heart of that work as well.
Great, thank you. That's all my questions.
That's it? No more?
That's it.
Okay. Councilmember Esparza.
Yeah, just the easy questions today, right? Can you figure out this intercity thing and while you're doing all the other stuff? Yeah, just the simple stuff. So I actually wanted to follow up on my comment about equity, because I think it can be misunderstood. And it's not intended, when I say it, and I'm trying to be better, to be more intentional, is I'm not saying let's go ahead and figure out a way to do what we're already going to do. Let's look at what certain communities really need. That's sort of what I mean, right? And so that means, I loved what you said about Santa Clara versus what was the other street, because in my district, you guys have been doing a great job because there's a major artery. It did not make sense to have bike lanes for all sorts of good reasons. But then there's another major artery where we did, and it's gone really well. And so how do we put the right things in the right areas, but recognizing that there are really densely populated neighborhoods who get up at times and go to work at times that are not served by public transit, which forces them on the roads, who yet, nonetheless, a population that uses public transportation at a higher rate than other parts of the city. And I forgot where I was going to go with the third one. And that multimodal connection is also really important because typically it's whole families. Like the example that I gave out earlier, I talk to kids from Overfelt all the time. I know it's in Councilmember Arenas' district, but a lot of the kids live in mine, and they get up to work. They get up at 3 or 3:30 to go to work with their parents and put in half a day's work before they go to school. And trying to figure out that transportation is a big part of the family's day and what they need to do to function. Oh, I remembered the third thing. And the third thing is east-west alignment is huge. And we have traditionally built a lot of our thinking around north-south alignment, and whether it's Alum Rock or Story or Tully, we all know Monterey is the exception, but whether it's Tully or Story or Alum Rock, those are major east-west connectors, and that we really need to look at how we design that differently. And I know I'm putting a wish list on top of all of these other things, but that's part of what equity means, is where are we going to put these projects to serve the people that are really going to use them the most, right? So I just thank you.
Thank you, and I want to say, as we go out with these efforts, we really look to the council offices to help us find those voices, right? And I think, especially with the bike plan, we've just gotten an immense amount of just great support. I think we've had over 35 community events, almost all of them sponsored by council offices. So just keep helping us find our blind spots and keeping those community voices coming, because I think that's how we make this planning work the best.
All right, on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. And I have no cards for open forum, so this meeting is adjourned.